What's up, everybody? I'm Ryan Thomas. Welcome to the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I am your host for tonight, Friday night special edition of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, as I bring you the latest breaking news of the Buffalo Bills. Today, obviously, this afternoon, the Buffalo Bills decided to part ways with offensive coordinator Greg Roman, as he is now no longer a coach of the Buffalo Bills, no longer the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. Now Buffalo has promoted running backs coach Anthony Lynn as their offensive coordinator. Anthony Lynn obviously was one of the candidates for the San Francisco 49ers head coaching position, and now he is the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills, and Greg Roman received the boot. Initially, when I first heard the news, I thought to myself, a little surprising. I was taken by surprise. Obviously, last night's game did not go the way I had hoped it would, or I know how you guys hoped it would. It was pretty embarrassing. It was an embarrassing loss, an embarrassing defeat at the hands of the New York Jets on national television at home, where we were completely torched offensively by a mediocre quarterback. Really, the wide receivers, Eric Decker and Brandon Marshall, and obviously Matt Forte, were the ones that were really carrying the load. Obviously, Fitzpatrick did have a great game, but he has the best weapons that he has ever had around him, and I really feel like that is the main reasoning why he had the game that he had. These wide receivers are big, massive, athletic specimens, Eric Decker and Brandon Marshall, and that definitely improved their chances as an offense, and especially against Buffalo. They were physically outmatched against Marshall and Decker, oversized, or undersized, I should say, against the Jets. But somebody had to pay the price. Somebody eventually had to pay the price, and eventually became overnight as Greg Roman was fired. Now, Anthony Lynn, I don't know what this means for their offense. Will this be a change of pace? What will we see that will be different now that Anthony Lynn is their offensive coordinator rather than Greg Roman? Who really knows? But obviously this is a brilliant move by Rex Ryan. And people might be caught off guard a little bit when I say that, but this will actually provide Rex Ryan with a longer leash as a head coach, because the question of, if they go 0-4 against the Cardinals, or if they go 0-4 against the New England Patriots, or not 0-4, if they go 0-3, then 0-4, if they start the season 0-4, could Rex be on his way out? And the next best replacement on their current staff, obviously Rex and Rob Ryan, would both be on their way out, and Greg Roman probably would have been the interim head coach for this season. But now that's not possible. Maybe Dennis Thurman will be the interim head coach. And the reason why I'm speaking kind of in a crystal ball type term is due to the fact that Rex will probably not be the head coach of this football team in 3-4 weeks. I would not be shocked if Terry Pegula decided that it was time to part ways if they get off to this horrid start to the season at 0-4, regardless of the suspension of Marcel Darius, regardless of the injuries to Shaq Lawson and Reggie Ragland. Rex is in a position where he talked the talk and he has not walked the walk yet. Whether I agree with the fact that Rex should be fired over Doug Whaley, I feel like the finger should be pointed at Doug Whaley. He has not done a good job at building this roster. And as far as depth, this team lacks depth. And guys like Stephon Gilmore that are begging for a contract, and Doug Whaley says before the season started that they're looking to extend Stephon Gilmore. I have a very tough time making sense of that, especially due to the fact that Stephon Gilmore hasn't really done a whole lot over the course of his rookie contract. And last night he was exposed. And the defense was exposed as a whole. I can go on and on about the mistakes pertaining to Doug Whaley, trading up 5 spots to take Sammy Watkins. I love Sammy Watkins, but that was a deep wide receiver class, and Doug Whaley didn't really do his due diligence, in my eyes, of scouting the first-round wide receiver talent. We did not have a first-round draft pick in 2015, And technically right now we don't have a first-round pick in 2016. So think of that principle. How can a GM keep his job when he traded 5 spots ahead in the 2014 draft? We had no 2015 first-round pick, and technically the player that we chose in the first round, Shaq Lawson, will miss the majority of this season, at least half. So we were without all these pieces heading into this season, and that should not be put to the blame of the GM. That's really hard for me to wrap my head around. We definitely have, more room to improve. We have room to grow as a team. It's just who is the next best option for the Buffalo Bills at the head coaching position. One guy that I've thought of would be Frank Reich, former Buffalo Bills quarterback, back up to Jim Kelly for 10, 11 years. We need someone to find the franchise quarterback, because I do not believe that Tyrod Taylor is the franchise quarterback of this team. He's a silver lining type quarterback. He's not a week-to-week consistent franchise quarterback. He's not the Phillip Rivers, the Cam Newtons, the Russell Wilsons. Those are just the first 3 names. Obviously, Brady Rodgers, he's not even in that category. He's not even in the category of Flacco or Matt Ryan in my eyes, or Andy Dalton. And there's other guys along in that mixture that he's not even in that bracket in my eyes. Not even in that tier, I should say. So, whether Frank Reich would come here to be the head coach, I don't know. I'm sure he'd be flattered by the offer of, the opportunity. But who would be their GM at that point? A best-case scenario would be Bill Polian, if they could bring back Bill Polian. I alluded to that in my Buffalo Bills in a Perfect World, Part 1 and Part 2. And obviously Chad Kelly would be a quarterback of interest for me, just because of the roots that he has to Buffalo and the fact that he's a damn good college quarterback. So whether that would translate to the NFL, I would be willing to take my chances on that, and it would provide the fans with some enthusiasm heading into 2017, because really we're started 0-2. We could go, we could come back. Anything can happen. I highly, highly, highly doubt the Bills winning more than 4, maybe 5 games this entire 2016 season. Who was really missed last night, to me, a guy that was really missed last night, was Carlos Williams. That's another move. The handling of the Carlos Williams situation, the handling of the Fred Jackson situation. Yes, Fred Jackson was past his prime, but Fred Jackson also, went to the Bills and said, hey, if I'm a free agent, I do have several teams interested. If I am going to be a free agent, I have several teams interested right now. One of them is the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, what am I staying here? If I'm staying here over the offseason, am I staying here for the full regular season? Doug Whaley assured him that he would be, and then Fred Jackson was given his walking papers at the 75-man roster cuts last season, and luckily he was able to catch on with the Seattle Seahawks at that point, and in a reserve running back role as the backup to Marshawn Lynch, as the backup to Thomas Rawls eventually. But that's not the way good business is handled, especially with a guy that really contributed a lot to a franchise. It is a business, and he did have to cut ties with Fred Jackson. But at that point when Fred Jackson asked if he was going to be cut, if there was any inclination that he would possibly be cut, Doug Whaley basically said that he was one of the key members of the team. Why would he tell a player, a true captain like Fred Jackson, why would he say that to Fred Jackson and then cut him before the 75-man roster cut? That was not a class move by Doug Whaley. And, we really need to look at the root, the deep root of the problem. Doug Marrone quit, and many chastised him for it, myself included. I even hate saying his name just for the fact that he quit on a group of players. But in terms of, why he quit, he probably quit, just a wild guess here, he probably quit because Doug Whaley traded that first-round pick to get Sammy Watkins, knowing that they did not have a quarterback. And back to that, the quarterback that Doug Whaley selected in the first round being E.J. Manuel, he said that he will basically have a re-signing or a termination due to this pick. What happened to that? What happened to that concept? E.J. Manuel is a middling backup quarterback now. He's nowhere near, a starter, and that's the situation. That's the situation. How could we say that Doug Whaley deserves to stay, given all those things that have happened, all those things that have went on? Guys have left the team through free agency. The Nigel Bradhams, the Leotis McKelvins, even the Kiko Alonso was traded. But even those three guys right there, they were never really replaced. They were never fully replaced, whether it be through free agency or the draft. Guys either were kind of promoted through the Buffalo Bills ranks, and they're a team that does not have the ability to do that. They're not the Steelers. They're not the Patriots. They're not the Seahawks. They're not one of those teams that has those guys, has a deep enough roster to let a guy go and then just promote from within on their roster already. That does not work for them. I anticipate that, although this move might have bought Rex some time as far as, well, we can't fire him, who the hell would we replace him with? Roman was probably that number one guy. And for the Bills to let Rex hire Greg Roman, I do feel like Terry Pagula still has some hope in Rex to keep him around. Whether he does or doesn't, that remains to be seen. But it would be really hard to keep a GM around at 0-4 for me. It would be really hard to keep a coach around at 0-4. Usually the GM and coach are a package deal. In this case, they're kind of not, because Doug Whaley never really had his own guy. I will say that in terms of the head coaching position. Russ Brandon hired Doug Marrone, and Doug Whaley was a part of the meetings with Rex Ryan, but really that was Terry Pagula's decision. So, it's tough to, the fact that they might have misfired on the Rex hiring, that is what it is. That happens a lot. But we need to find out what's next. We need to find out how we're going to get better and how we are going to do it and when we are going to do it. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. As I said in the title, heads will roll. I think Greg Roman is the first. Rex Ryan could easily be next in the next 2 weeks. And then hopefully Doug Whaley, because I really, out of all the guys that I would like to see fired the most, I feel like it's pretty obvious to you guys, pretty obvious to myself, that I would prefer Doug Whaley to be fired. I would have preferred for him to be fired, even last year. I'm not a fan of Doug Whaley. I don't like what he has done with this team. Getting LaShawn McCoy was a gift. Charles Clay, one could say he was overpaid to come here. Robert Woods hasn't really panned out as a second-round pick. Ronald Darby, while he had a great year last year, he looked terrible last night. Along with Stephon Gilmore, the roster that is in place, Aaron Williams at safety, he's not a safety. He was a corner at Texas. He's had huge injury problems with his neck, and he's still towing the line at safety. God bless him, but most teams would move on from a situation like that. Most teams that are looking to move forward would move on. They wouldn't cling to hope that a guy can stay healthy. The Sammy Watkins deal, in hindsight, looks worse and worse as the years go by, due to the fact that we don't have a quarterback that can get him the ball, and we don't have an offense that features him enough. So it's just a huge hodgepodge of failures and miscalculations once again by the Buffalo Bills, and I anticipate that it will only get worse as the weeks go by. Week 4, if they go 0-4, if they head to Foxborough and lose to Jimmy Garoppolo and the New England Patriots, which I anticipate that they will, Rex could be on his way out. The last game of his head coaching career could be against Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. Wouldn't that be just poetic in a way? Take care, guys. Hopefully this season somehow gets better. I highly doubt that it will. Take care.